You think poverty is a matter of luck? We know it's a matter of mental programming. While you teach your children to be humble and grateful for what they have, we train ours to see poverty as a contagious disease that must be avoided at all costs. I don't say this out of cruelty. I say it with the coldness of someone who understands how the world really works. You romanticize the struggle. We eliminate the need for it. And today, I'm going to show you exactly how we do this and why your children will remain poor. If you don't change now, let me tell you a story that happened right here in America. A 15-year-old boy, the son of immigrants, worked 16 hours a day at a neighborhood bakery. His family lived on $300 a month. Every night he heard his parents arguing about overdue bills. His mother cried, his father drank. It was the classic cycle of poverty, perpetuating itself. But this boy did something different. Instead of accepting that God willed it, or that the rich are born rich, he started to observe. Really observe. He noticed that the bakery owner didn't work 16 hours. He worked 2. The rest of the time, he was in the office doing what? So the boy asked a question that changed everything. "Sir, what do you do when you're not at the bakery?" The owner laughed and said, "I buy other bakeries, kid." That night, the boy understood something his family had taken 3 generations not to understand. Money doesn't come from working more. It comes from owning what makes others work. At 17, instead of accepting a promotion to manager, he took his savings, $200, and bought wholesale ingredients. He started selling homemade bread to the neighbors. Not because he wanted to compete with the boss, but because he wanted to understand the owner's side. Within 6 months, he was earning more selling bread at home than he did at the bakery. At 18, he opened his first bakery. By 25, he had a network of 15 stores. Today, at 42, he owns 300 units across 12 states. The difference wasn't talent, it wasn't luck, it was mental programming. While his parents programmed the mind to accept poverty as a destiny, he reprogrammed his mind to see wealth as inevitability. Do you know the brutal difference between us and you? You teach your kids that money doesn't bring happiness. We teach that poverty guarantees unhappiness. You talk about values more important than money. We know that without money, your values are just cheap philosophy that can't pay a single bill. While you protest for equality on the streets, we build empires in offices. While you complain about the system, we buy the system. While you teach your kids to be obedient employees, we train ours to be ruthless owners. And the most ironic part, you hate us for it, call us cold, greedy, exploitative, yet you keep buying our products, working in our companies, paying our rents. You feed exactly what you claim to hate. Now tell me this, what was the biggest lie you were told about money? That it corrupts? That it shouldn't be a priority? That working hard is enough to succeed? Comment which of these myths is still poisoning your mind and preventing you from truly prospering. Now that you understand you've been programmed to fail, let me show you how we program our children to dominate. Because there is a code, a specific mindset that separates money owners from wage slaves. And you're about to see exactly where you're going wrong. First rule of our code, money is a tool, not a goal. While you chase money like dogs after a bone, we use money to buy time, influence, and power. My 12-year-old already understands that $1,000 isn't for buying brand-name sneakers. It's for buying shares in a company that makes sneakers. That's the difference. You teach save to buy what you want. We teach invest to own those who sell what you want. You think like consumers, we think like owners. And this mental difference explains why you work for us, not the other way around. Second rule, loyalty is currency. While you think networking is exchanging cards at events, we know it's about creating a web of mutual favors. When my child needs something, he doesn't borrow money. He calls someone who owes the family a favor. When someone needs something we can provide, we charge not in money, but in future loyalty. You make friends for affinity. We make alliances for strategy. And before you call me cold, let me explain. This coldness ensures that nothing is ever missing for the people who truly matter. How many of your real friends lent you money when you needed it most? Our strategic contacts opened doors you didn't even know existed. Third rule, emotional control is financial control. You buy on impulse, invest on emotion, spend out of anxiety. We decide with cold logic. My child learned at 10 years old that any purchase over $100 requires 24 hours of reflection. Not because we're stingy, but because emotional decisions break fortunes. You celebrate when you earn money. We analyze why we earn. You panic when you lose. We calculate how to recover with interest. The difference is emotional control. Money cannot be master of your emotions if you want to be master of money. Now let me show you where you're failing miserably. You trade time for salary. We trade time for assets that generate passive income. You work 40 years to retire with a ridiculous pension. We work 10 years to have enough income to never work again. You celebrate a raise. We buy shares of the company that pays your salary. You save to buy a house. We buy the whole building and rent apartments to people like you. You are the pawns. We are the players. And do you know what's even more tragic? You Americans live deluded by this fantasy of financial freedom and the American dream. You go into debt to look rich, buying financed cars, mortgaged houses, maxed out credit cards. You call this living life. We call it voluntary slavery. While you spend what you don't have to impress people who don't even like you, we invest what's left after living comfortably. You work to pay interest. We collect the interest you pay. The math is simple and brutal. You feed our system. Every installment you pay, every interest you owe, every loan you take, it all becomes profit in our investments. You are the fuel that powers our wealth machine. The material I left in the pinned comment isn't for just anyone. It's exclusively for those brave enough to admit they've been deceived and are ready to learn the true code of wealth. But a warning, don't access it if you still believe that money doesn't buy happiness. This content is for those who understand that poverty definitely buys misery. Now, I'm going to teach you something that can change your financial life forever if you have the courage to apply it. It's a strategy we've used for generations, that anyone can implement, even starting from zero. But first, you need to accept a painful truth. You're not poor because of a lack of opportunity. You're poor because of a lack of mindset. Here's the practical teaching, the 3 circles rule. Every month, you must divide your net income into 3 exact parts. First circle, 50% for survival, housing, food, basic transportation. Second circle, 20% for acquiring assets, stocks, funds, anything that generates income without your physical presence. Third circle, 30% for strategic reinvestment in yourself. Courses, networking, tools that increase your income-generating capacity. But here's the secret you'll never apply. When income increases, the percentages remain the same, but you never increase the first circle beyond what's necessary to live decently. Any excess goes straight to circles 2 and 3. While you raise your standard of living in proportion to your income, we keep the standard stable and exponentially increase investments. My 16-year-old son already applies this. He earns $400 a month doing freelance work. $200 go to personal expenses, $80 to investments, $120 to courses and tools. When he starts earning $4,000, he will still spend only what's necessary to live well. But $3,200 will work for him every month. In 5 years, while you'll be celebrating a raise. He will have an investment portfolio generating passive income higher than the average American salary. In 10 years, he will be financially independent. In 20 years, he will be the boss of your children. This is the cruel difference between our education and yours. You teach to spend better, we teach to own more. You teach household budgeting, we teach empire building. And do you know why you'll never apply what I just taught? Because it requires immediate sacrifice for future gain. It requires living below your means when everyone around you lives above theirs. It requires discipline when your friends are having fun. It requires thinking like the rich when you're still poor. You prefer the illusion of temporary comfort over the reality of permanent wealth. You prefer impressing strangers with appearances rather than building real wealth for your family. You prefer complaining about the system instead of learning the rules of the game. That's why you remain poor. Not due to a lack of opportunity, but due to a lack of character. Because wealth isn't about how much you earn, it's about how much you can refrain from spending. It's not about how hard you work, it's about how many assets work for you. It's not about how much you know, it's about how much of what you know you actually apply. The harshest truth is this: your children will repeat your mistakes. They will grow up with the same defeatist mindset, the same scarcity programming, the same fears about money. And when they reach 40, they'll be exactly where you are now, working to enrich the children of families like mine. This is the reality you refuse to accept. That there is an elite that thinks differently, acts differently, and teaches differently. An elite that you feed every day with your work, your loans, your impulsive purchases, your mediocre financial decisions. We don't exploit you. You volunteered to be exploited. We just accepted the offer. Now you have a simple choice. Continue being the fuel for our wealth machine, or learn to build your own machine. The videos that appear on your screen were specifically selected for those who chose to stop being financial slaves. But if you click on any other video, I already know your choice. And we know exactly what to do with people who make predictable choices.